Elena Harrow pressed her hand against her swollen belly and tore the pearl necklace from her throat, scattering every bead across the polished floor like spilled confessions. "I am not your possession, Victor. Not anymore." Her voice didn't shake. Her husband's did. If you believe a woman has the right to choose herself, even when the whole world calls her a fool, hit that subscribe button and stay with me till the final word. And leave a comment telling me what city you're watching from, so I can see just how far Elena's story has traveled tonight. Elena Harrow hadn't slept in 3 nights, and still her hands were steady when she poured the tea. Victor watched her from the far end of the breakfast table, his newspaper folded beside his plate, untouched. He was waiting for her to break. She knew the look. She had worn it herself plenty of times back when she still believed a woman's suffering made her noble. "You're quiet this morning," he said. "I reckon I've been quiet most mornings, Victor. You just never noticed." He set down his cup. "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means exactly what I said." The housekeeper, Margaret, moved past the doorway carrying linens, and Elena caught her eye for half a second. Margaret gave the smallest nod. That nod was the only thing holding Elena together. That nod said the trunk was packed. The horses were ready. The letter to her Aunt Cecilia had gone out 2 days prior, and a reply had come back yesterday, sewn into the hem of Margaret's apron. "Come, child, come as fast as you can." Elena folded her napkin and laid it across her lap. "I'll be riding into town today," she said. Victor's jaw tightened. "You will not." "I wasn't asking." "Elena." He said her name the way a man says a warning. "You're in no condition to be traveling. You're carrying my child." "Am I?" She met his eyes. "Or am I carrying a child you intend to use the way you've used everything else in this house?" The silence that followed was so thick she could hear the clock ticking in the hallway. Victor's hand closed around the edge of the table until his knuckles went white. "You will not speak to me that way." "I'll speak to you however I please, Victor Harrow. I reckon I've earned that much after 7 years. Lower your voice." "No." She stood. The scraping of her chair across the floor was the loudest sound in the room. Victor stood 2 slower, the way a man stands when he's trying to remind a woman who's taller. "Sit down, Elena." "I will not." "I said sit, and I said I will not." Her voice cracked only once, and she hated herself for it, but she kept going. "You think because I carry your name, I carry your orders. I don't. I never did. I just pretended because it was easier than watching you throw a glass at the wall." Victor's face went pale, then red. "You're being hysterical." "Is that what we're calling it now?" "You're pregnant, Elena. Your mind is." "My mind is clearer than it's been in 7 years." She pressed both hands flat against the table to steady herself. "I know about Lady Vivian." He didn't move. He didn't even blink. That told her everything. "I know about the cottage you keep for her on the west edge of the property." She said, her voice quieter now, which was worse than if she'd shouted. "I know about the money you've been moving through Mr. Pruitt's accounts. I know she was here on the night of the harvest ball in my own drawing room wearing my mother's brooch. Margaret saw her. Don't insult me by denying it." "Elena, don't. Don't you dare say my name like that. Like you're sorry. Like you're a man who's ever been sorry a day in his life." He took a step toward her. She took a step back, and her hand went without thinking to her belly. Victor saw the gesture. His face changed. Something in him that had been cold went colder. "That child," he said, "belongs to this family. That child belongs to me. It belongs to the Harrow name, and you will not take it from this house. Watch me." Margaret appeared in the doorway, then holding Elena's traveling cloak and her gloves. Her eyes were down, but her hands were shaking. Elena crossed to her and took the cloak without a word. "Margaret," Victor said, low and dangerous. "Put that down." Margaret looked at Elena. Elena nodded once. "I can't, sir," Margaret said. "Begging your pardon, I truly can't." "You are dismissed." "Yes, sir, I reckon I am." Margaret turned and walked out. Victor stared after her like a man who had just watched a door close that he never expected to see moved. Elena pulled her gloves on slowly, finger by finger. "You think you can walk out of here," Victor said. "You think the town will take you in? You think your aunt, that old spinster, can protect you from me?" "I don't need protecting, Victor. I just need going." "Elena Harrow, if you step foot out of this house." "Then what?" He didn't answer. "Then what, Victor?" She turned to face him fully now. "You'll drag me back. You'll tell the county I've lost my senses. You'll put me in a room and turn the key. Go on, try. I've got letters, Victor. I've got ledgers. I've got the names of every woman you paid off and every man you threatened. And I've got them copied 3 times over. And 1 copy is not in this house. And 1 copy is not in this county. And if I do not write to my aunt every Sunday, that copy goes to every newspaper from Richmond to Boston." His mouth opened. Nothing came out. "You taught me how to play this game, Victor. You taught me every move. Don't look surprised that I learned." "You wouldn't." "I would. And you know I would. Because the only thing I loved more than my pride was a child I didn't even know I was carrying yet. And now I know. And it changes everything." She walked past him. He didn't stop her. His hand lifted like it might, and then fell. She paused at the door. "One more thing, Victor." "What?" "Lady Vivian can have the cottage. I never wanted it. But she cannot have my mother's brooch. Margaret has already taken it back. If you try to retrieve it, I will know, and I will act accordingly." Elena. "Goodbye, Mr. Harrow." She walked out. The carriage was waiting at the far end of the drive, not the front. Margaret had seen to that. A driver Elena had never met before sat in the box, a lean man with a gray beard and kind eyes, hired through Aunt Cecilia, and paid in coin Elena had set aside from her own dressmaker's allowance over 3 long years. "Ma'am," he said, tipping his hat. "Name's Henry. I'm to get you to Cecilia Winfield's place no matter what." "Thank you, Henry. Ain't no thanks needed. Step up now. We've got daylight to chase." Margaret climbed in after her, breathless. She had a bundle under her arm, wrapped in brown paper tied with twine. "The ledgers," she whispered. "And the letters. I got 'em all, ma'am. Every last one." "Bless you, Margaret." "Don't bless me. Just don't look back." Elena didn't look back. Dead. They had been on the road an hour when the first wave of it hit her. Not fear, not regret. Something stranger, something she didn't have a word for. Margaret watched her. "You crying, ma'am?" "No, I don't believe I am." "You look like you might be." "I'm not." Margaret waited. "I feel like a woman who just set down a stone she's been carrying since her wedding day," Elena said finally. "My arms don't know what to do with themselves." "Well, maybe they'll learn to hold something else." Elena's hand went to her belly. "Maybe they will." Margaret nodded, satisfied, and looked out at the road. "You know what Miss Cecilia said to me when I brought her your first letter?" Margaret said. "What did she say?" "She said, 'It took that girl long enough. I was beginning to think she'd forgot whose blood she had.'" Elena laughed. It surprised her, the sound of it. It had been a long time since she'd made a sound that wasn't careful. "She always did think I was softer than I was. She doesn't think that now, ma'am." "No, I don't reckon she does." They stopped at a way station near midday to water the horses. Henry helped Elena down from the carriage with the kind of gentleness men reserve for women they suspect are stronger than they look. Elena nodded her thanks and walked a little ways off, needing to stand on her own 2 feet, needing to feel the ground. A woman was drawing water at the well. She glanced up at Elena. Elena saw her eyes move in the way of country women, taking in the cut of the cloak, and the fineness of the gloves, and then the swell of the belly, and then the absence of a husband. The woman's face didn't change. She just nodded. "Long ride?" the woman asked. "Long enough." "Goin' far?" "Far enough." The woman almost smiled. "Well, you keep going then." "I aim to." The woman pulled up her bucket. My mama left my daddy in the summer of '97, walked 14 miles with me on her hip, lived to be 83 and died laughing." Elena looked at her. "Did she ever regret it?" "Ma'am," the woman said. She never once said the word. Then she picked up her bucket and walked off toward a cabin at the edge of the clearing. And Elena stood very still for a long moment, and then she walked back to the carriage and climbed inside, and did not say another word for an hour. By the time they crossed into the village where Cecilia lived, the sun was sliding down low, and Elena's back was aching in a way she hadn't known a back could ache. Henry reined the horses in front of a modest white house with a blue door, and before the carriage had fully stopped, the door opened, and a small, fierce woman in a dark dress came marching down the path. "Well," Aunt Cecilia said, "you took your time." "Aunt, get down from there. Let me look at you." Elena stepped down. Cecilia took her face in both her hands, not gently, and looked at her hard, the way a doctor looks at a patient, the way a woman looks at another woman when she's trying to measure what's been done. "He didn't hit you," Cecilia said. "No, not once, not once." "Well, thank the good Lord for small mercies. And the child? Still here?" Cecilia's eyes welled up, which Elena had never in her entire life seen happen. The older woman blinked it away furiously. "You come inside. You come inside right now. Margaret, you too, girl. I've got soup on, and I've got a bed made, and I've got a loaded rifle by the door, so I don't want any of you looking nervous on my account." Cecilia. Inside Elena. "Cecilia, he's going to come. I know he's going to come. He's going to bring men. I know that too. He's going to tell the village I've lost my senses. He can tell him any fool thing he likes. This village has known me 41 years. He's known me 4. Let's see whose word carries further." Elena closed her eyes. "I'm so tired, Aunt." "I know, child. I don't know if I can—" "Yes, you can." Cecilia took her hand, and Elena felt how strong the old woman's grip still was. "You already did the hard part. You walked out that door. Everything after this is just finishing what you started." "Is it?" "It is. Now come inside before the neighbors start talking." Elena almost laughed again. "Aunt Cecilia, the neighbors are going to talk no matter what I do." "Oh, I know they are. I'm just saying, let's not give 'em a head start." Yet, that night, Elena lay in a narrow bed in a small room at the top of Cecilia's stairs, and she listened to the house settle the way old houses do, and she put her hand on her belly, and she spoke for the first time to the child she had not yet met. "I don't know what kind of world I'm bringing you into," she whispered. "I don't know if I've done right. I don't know if I've done wrong. I just know I couldn't be the woman I was one more day and still be a mother you'd ever be proud of." The child didn't answer. The child couldn't yet. But Elena thought for the first time in 7 years that the silence in a room could be a kind one. Not the silence of a husband who had stopped speaking to her. Not the silence of a marriage that had stopped being one. A silence that was only her own breath, and the breath of a child not yet born, and the breath of a house that had been built by a woman who had never married and had done just fine. Downstairs, Cecilia was oiling the rifle at the kitchen table. Elena could hear the soft, steady sound of the cloth moving over the barrel. A good sound. A clean sound. Elena closed her eyes. Somewhere many miles away, Victor Harrow was writing letters of his own. She knew he was. She had lived with the man 7 years, and she knew every turn of his mind, and she knew he was not the kind of man who took a loss quietly. He was the kind of man who burned a field he couldn't harvest. Let him write, she thought. Let him ride. Let him come. She had ledgers. She had letters. She had a woman downstairs with a rifle and a grudge, and 41 years of standing in this village. She had a child under her hand and a name she had chosen herself. "I am not your possession, Victor Harrow," she whispered into the dark. "I never was." And for the first time in 7 years, Elena Harrow slept. Morning came harder than the night had been. Elena woke to the sound of a horse outside the window, and before her eyes were fully open, her hand was already on her belly, already counting. 1, 2. The child moved. She breathed out. Downstairs, a man's voice. She was on her feet before she knew she had moved. "Aunt Cecilia." "Down here, child. Take your time." Take your time meant do not rush. Take your time meant, I have this. Elena knew her aunt's voice the way she knew the shape of her own hand. She pulled on her robe and stood at the top of the stairs and listened. "Only askin', ma'am, whether she came through here. That's all. Man's got a right to know where his wife is." "A man has a right to whatever his wife permits him, Mr. Caldwell. And I don't see a wife standin' here permittin' anything." "Ma'am, Mr. Harrow sent me personal." "Then Mr. Harrow can come personal. I don't do business through errand boys." "Ma'am, you've had your answer. There's the door. Mind the step." A pause, then boots on the porch, then the sound of a horse turning. Elena came down the stairs slow, one hand on the banister, the other on the child. He's gone. For now. Cecilia was at the window watching the man ride off. That was Jesse Caldwell. Victor sent a tracker, not a lawyer. He's not ready to make it public yet. That's something. How did he know to come here? "Child, your mother was my sister. Victor's had my address in a desk drawer since the day you married him. A man like that keeps a list of every door a woman might run through." Elena sank into a chair. "So he knows. He's known since sunup, I reckon. Maybe earlier. Then he'll come himself." "He'll come. But not today. Men like Victor don't ride into a village cold. He'll send 3 more men before he sets foot on my porch. He wants to know who'll stand with you, and who won't, and he wants to put the fear into 'em before he ever shows his face." "Aunt, I can't let you—" "Hush. Aunt Cecilia, I brought this to your door. Elena Harrow." The old woman turned. "You listen to me. I have waited 7 years for you to come to this door. You hear me? 7 years. I watched my sister's girl marry a man with cold eyes, and I said nothing, because your mama was gone, and your daddy was a fool, and you were 20 years old and in love with a name. I said nothing. And I have lived with that silence every day since. So you do not stand in my kitchen and apologize for walking through my door. You do not." Elena's throat closed. "I didn't know." "I know you didn't." "I didn't know you—" "I know, child. Nobody ever does till it's too late or just barely in time." Margaret came in from the back with an armful of kindling. She stopped when she saw their faces. "He sent a man?" "He sent a man." "Oh, Lord." "Margaret, sit down. You're white as a sheet." "Ma'am, I can't sit. If I sit, I'll start shaking." "Then stand. But put the kindling down 'fore you drop it on your foot." Margaret set the wood down. Her hands were shaking anyway. "Miss Elena, there's something I got to tell you." "Margaret." "Something I've been carrying. I meant to tell you on the road, but I couldn't get the words right, and then you looked so tired, and I thought let her sleep one night. But it can't wait no more, not with men coming." Elena felt her stomach drop. "What is it?" Margaret looked at Cecilia. Cecilia nodded. "It's about the child, ma'am." Margaret. "It's about when he knew. Mr. Harrow. About when he found out you was carrying." "He found out a fortnight ago. I told him myself." "No, ma'am. He knew before that." Silence. "What do you mean he knew before that?" "The doctor. Dr. Fleming. He came to the house, remember when you had the fever, in April?" "Yes." "He told Mr. Harrow, before he told you. Mr. Harrow paid him to tell him first." Elena's mouth opened. "Ma'am, I heard it. I was bringing linens down the hall, and the door was cracked, and I heard Mr. Harrow say, 'Don't tell her yet. I need time to settle some things.' And Dr. Fleming said, 'Sir, she has a right.' And Mr. Harrow said, 'She has the rights I give her.'" Margaret. "I'm sorry, ma'am. I am so sorry. I didn't know what to do. I thought if I told you you'd confront him and I thought he'd hurt you. And then by the time you told him yourself, he already knew and he just acted surprised. And I didn't know what to—" "Margaret, stop." Margaret stopped. Her eyes were full. Elena sat very still. "What things?" she said. Did he need time to settle? Margaret looked at her. Margaret, what things? Ma'am, he went to see a lawyer in Charleston, 3 days after Dr. Fleming told him. I know because I was the one cleaned out his coat pocket when he got back and there was a card, and the card said, Mr. Jazz, Pell Attorney at Law, and underneath it said Wills and Estates. He was changing his will. I reckon he was, ma'am. He was changing his will so the child wouldn't inherit. I don't know for sure, ma'am, but say it, Margaret. I think he meant to send you away somewhere, someplace quiet. I think he meant to take the child and put it with Lady Vivian. I think that's what they've been planning all spring. Elena stood up so fast the chair scraped. Aunt? I heard her child. Aunt, he was going to take my baby. I heard. He was going to take my baby and give it to that woman and send me to where some hospital, some country house with a lock on the outside. Yes. Yes. You're not surprised. I am not surprised. I am grieved. I am not surprised. Elena's hand went to her mouth. She felt something hot behind her eyes, but it wasn't tears. It was something older than tears. Margaret, ma'am, you saved my life. No, ma'am, You saved my life, and you saved my child's life, and you did it carrying linens down a hallway. You walked out of that house with me, and you did not have to. You could have stayed. He would have kept you on. He would have paid you well. Ma'am, I couldn't have stayed. Why not? Because I watched my own sister die in a house like that, and I swore on her grave I'd never watch it twice. Elena crossed the room and took the older woman's hands. Margaret, when this is over, when I have my feet under me, you will never work another day you don't want to. Do you hear me? Ma'am, you don't have to. I do have to, because you're not my maid anymore, Margaret. You're my witness, and witnesses don't sweep floors in my house. Margaret's face crumpled for 1 second, and then she nodded hard, and then she picked the kindling back up, because that was what Margaret did when she didn't know what else to do. Cecilia watched the whole thing without speaking. Then she said quiet, Elena. Yes, Aunt. We have to move faster than we thought. I know. If he's got a lawyer in Charleston, he's got paper going out today. He'll file for guardianship before the child's even born. He'll claim you're unfit. He'll claim you ran. Then we file first. That's what I was about to say. Who do you know? A man named Thomas Ashby. Rides circuit out of Savannah. Honest as the day's long. Used to be sweet on me back when dirt was young. She almost smiled. Owes me a favor. Owes me more than a favor. Can he ride here? He can ride here by Friday if I send word now. Send word now? I will? And Aunt? Yes, child. The ledgers, the letters. Margaret has them in the bundle upstairs. I want copies made today. I want 1 copy with Ashby the minute he walks in the door. I want 1 copy with the editor of whatever newspaper you trust most in this county. And I want 1 copy sewn into a mattress in a room nobody but you and me knows about. Cecilia looked at her niece a long moment. Who taught you to think like that? My husband did. He didn't mean to. No, they never do. A knock on the door. All 3 of them froze. Cecilia picked up the rifle. Who's there? Mrs. Winfield. It's Hattie Breen from down the lane. I saw a rider come off your property, and I thought you might want to know what he said at the general store before he left. Cecilia lowered the rifle an inch. Hattie. Come in, honey. Hattie Breen came in. She was maybe 17, thin as a rail, with a braid down her back and eyes too sharp for her age. He told Mr. Pettigrew that Mrs. Harrow here had lost her mind. He said she'd run off on her husband, and she was carrying a baby, and she was dangerous. He said Mr. Harrow was offering $20 to any man who brought back word of where she was. $20, Cecilia said. Yes, ma'am. And what did Mr. Pettigrew say? Mr. Pettigrew said he'd keep an eye out. But Mrs. Winfield, Mr. Pettigrew hates you. He hates you on account of that business with his brother's fence last summer. He'll take the $20. I'm sure he will. I thought you should know. Hattie Breen, you are a fine young woman and your mother raised you right. Thank you, ma'am. Do you want $1 for your trouble? No, ma'am. I want a promise. Cecilia raised an eyebrow. What kind of promise? When they start talking about Mrs. Harrow in the village, and they will, ma'am, they're already startin'. I want your permission to say what I saw. I want to say, I saw her sittin' at your table, and she looked tired, but she didn't look crazy, and she had kind eyes and a quiet voice, and her hand was on her belly the whole time, like she was protectin' that baby with her life. Elena looked at the girl. Hattie? Ma'am? Why would you do that for me? Hattie Breen met her eyes. Because my sister married a man like yours. And nobody spoke up for her. And she's buried behind the Methodist church, and I walk past her every Sunday, and I swore the next time I saw it comin', I'd open my mouth. That's why, ma'am. Elena couldn't speak. Cecilia spoke for her. You have my permission, Hattie. You have it 10 times over. Thank you, ma'am. Go on home now. And if you hear anything more at that store, you come tell me. Yes, ma'am. The girl left. The door closed behind her. Elena sat back down. Aunt? I know, child. There are 2 of them. Margaret, Hattie. There are 2 of them already. There will be more. Will there? Elena, you think you're the only woman in this county who's ever wanted to walk out of her own house? You are not. You are just the first one with the ledgers to prove it. The afternoon wore on, and Elena made lists. She had always been good at lists. She sat at Cecilia's kitchen table with a sheet of paper and a pen, and she wrote down every name she could remember of every woman Victor had ever wronged. Lady Vivian? Yes, but others before her. A seamstress in Charleston. A widow in Richmond. A governess who had left in the night 2 years back, and whose letter of recommendation Elena had signed without reading because Victor had told her to. Elena wrote that name down twice. She underlined it. Miss Hannah Pruitt, she said aloud. Cecilia looked up. Related to that Pruitt who handles his accounts. His niece. Oh, I think... Elena put the pen down. I think that's how Victor keeps Mr. Pruitt quiet. I think he has something on the girl. Or had something on her. She went north, I believe. I signed the paper. Elena? I signed the paper, Aunt. I didn't read it. He told me it was a reference, and I signed it. I was 3 years married. I didn't know what I didn't know. You know now. I do. Then write. Elena wrote. She wrote until her hand cramped. She wrote until the light in the window turned gold. She wrote until Margaret brought her bread, and Cecilia made her eat it. She wrote every name, every date, every overheard conversation, every check she had signed, without reading every party she had attended, where a woman had looked at her with pity, and Elena had mistaken it for envy. By the time the sun went down, she had 4 full pages. Aunt, yes? Is this enough? Cecilia picked up the pages. She read them slowly. Her face did not change, but her hands tightened. Elena, is it enough? Child, this isn't a divorce. This is a trial. Good. Elena. Good, Aunt. I want a trial. I want the whole county to sit down and listen. I want every woman he's hurt to have her name said out loud in a room with windows. I don't want a quiet annulment in a lawyer's office. I don't want to disappear. I want to be heard. Cecilia set the pages down. You understand what that will cost you? I understand. They will call you every name there is. Let them. They will say you're unfit. They will say the child isn't his. They will say you seduced him into the marriage and drove him to the widow. They will say it in print, Elena. They will say it in pulpits. Let them. The child will grow up hearing it. Elena's hand went still on her belly. The child, she said slowly, will grow up knowing its mother did not flinch. The child will grow up hearing its mother's name in a courtroom, and hearing its mother's name in a church, and hearing its mother's name on the wind, and the child will know that every time a lie was told about her, she answered it with the truth. I would rather raise a child of a storm, Aunt, than a child of a silence. Cecilia looked at her a long time. Your mother, she said quietly, would have been so afraid of you right now. And so proud, in equal measure. I hope so. I know so. Night fell. Margaret went up to bed exhausted. Cecilia sat by the window with the rifle across her lap and a cup of coffee gone cold beside her. Elena sat at the table still holding the pen, though she had stopped writing an hour before. A horse on the road, not fast, not slow, steady. Cecilia was up before Elena could breathe. Away from the window, child. Aunt, away from the window. Elena moved. Cecilia eased the curtain back with the barrel of the rifle. One rider. Victor. No, too small, too light in the saddle, coming slow like he wants to be seen. A pause. He's stopping. Aunt. He's dismounting. Cecilia squinted. Elena. It's a boy. Maybe 15. He's carrying something. The knock came tentative. Who's there? Mrs. Winfield, ma'am. My name is Silas Gray. I was sent from Harrow Estate. I have a letter for Mrs. Harrow. I was told not to leave until it was put in her hands personal. Cecilia and Elena looked at each other. It's a trap, Cecilia said. Maybe. It's bait. Maybe. Don't open that door, Elena. I have to know what's in the letter. He'll hand it through the window. Cecilia opened the window a crack. Boy, pass it through. Don't come closer. The boy obeyed. He pushed a folded paper through the gap. His hand was shaking. Go on now, Cecilia said. Ride back where you came from, and boy. Yes, ma'am. How old are you? 14, ma'am. 14, Cecilia sighed. Go home, Silas Gray. Go home and tell your mother a woman in a white house asked after her. Yes, ma'am. He fled. Elena unfolded the letter. She read it once. She read it twice. Her hand went very steady. Too steady. Aunt? What does it say? He says he will drop the guardianship suit. Show me. Elena handed her the page. Cecilia read. He says he will drop it. Cecilia read aloud. If Elena returns to the estate by Sunday and signs a document of reconciliation and agrees to quiet the matter, he says if she does not. Cecilia stopped. Keep reading, Aunt. He says, keep reading. He says Margaret will hang for theft. Silence. He says he has identified missing ledgers and missing letters from his study, and he has filed a complaint naming Margaret Doyle as the thief. And he has a witness, he says, and the witness is Dr. Fleming. And he says, if Elena does not return by Sunday, Margaret will be arrested, and she will be tried, and she will be hanged, because theft of that kind from a man of his station is a capital matter in this state. Elena took the letter back. She folded it once, twice, 3 times. She looked at the fire. She did not put the letter in the fire. Elena. I heard you, Aunt. What are you going to do? Elena's hand went slow to her belly. Aunt Cecilia? Yes. Wake Margaret. Wake her gentle. Don't scare her. Why? Because I need to know if she can ride. Elena, you are not sending that woman away. I am not sending her away. I am sending her to Savannah. Tonight, with Henry, with the ledgers, with a letter to Thomas Ashby that I am about to write, and that Ashby will receive from her hand before the sun comes up Saturday. And Margaret will not be in this county when Sunday comes. And she will not be in this state, and she will not be anywhere Victor Harrow's reach extends. And then I will answer his letter. Elena, he said if you don't return. I heard what he said. He will hang her in her absence. He can do that. Men like him can do that. Not if Thomas Ashby files first. Elena. Aunt, listen. He has made one mistake. He has made one enormous, beautiful, irrevocable mistake. And he has made it in writing, and the ink is still wet. Cecilia looked at the letter in her niece's hand. Her face changed. Oh. Yes. Oh, child. Yes. He threatened a woman's life in exchange for your return. In his own hand. In his own hand. That is not a letter, Aunt. That is a confession. That is extortion. That is a felony. That is a man putting a rope around his own neck and handing me the other end. Cecilia sat down. Elena Harrow. Yes, Aunt. You were never soft. No, I reckon I never was. I reckon I was just fool enough to hope you'd stay that way longer than you did. I stayed soft as long as I could afford to, Aunt. I can't afford to anymore. I've got a child to raise, and a friend to keep alive, and a man to answer for every woman he ever whispered a threat to. Cecilia stood. She picked up the rifle. She set it down again. She picked up a pen. Margaret rides at midnight. Yes. I'll wake her. Thank you. And Elena. Yes, Aunt. When you answer that letter, when you sit down and write back to Victor Harrow. Yes, you write it so he reads it twice. Elena looked at the folded letter in her hand. She felt the child move once, low and certain, like a promise being kept. Aunt Cecilia, she said, I am going to write it so he reads it every night for the rest of his life. Margaret was ready by 11. She stood in the kitchen in a dark traveling dress Cecilia had pressed into her hands, with a satchel across her chest, holding the ledgers, the letters, and a sealed envelope addressed to Thomas Ashby in Savannah. Her face was pale. Her hands were steady. Margaret. Ma'am. You do not stop. Do you hear me? I hear you. You do not stop for food. You do not stop for weather. You do not stop for a man in a coat who says he's the law. Henry knows the road. You trust Henry. I trust Henry, ma'am. If anyone stops you, you hand them the second envelope, the one in your skirt. Yes, that envelope says that any interference with your journey is interference with a federal witness in a matter of interstate extortion. It is signed by me, and it is signed by my aunt, and it has been sworn before a justice of the peace in this village at 9 o'clock this evening. That justice of the peace is named Edgar Wills, and Edgar Wills owes my aunt his life for reasons she will never tell me. Margaret almost smiled. I reckon he does. The envelope will not stop every man, but it will stop most, and most is all we need. Yes, ma'am. Elena reached out and took her by both shoulders. Margaret. Ma'am. If I do not see you again. Ma'am, don't. If I do not see you again, I want you to know that you are the bravest woman I have ever met. I was 7 years in that house. I was blind. You saw for both of us. You walked linens down a hallway, and you saved a child not yet born. Do you hear me? Ma'am, do you hear me, Margaret Doyle? I hear you. Go. Margaret went. Henry was waiting with the horses, lanterns low, his old face set. He tipped his hat to Elena and said, I'll get her to Savannah, ma'am, or I won't come back. That's my word. Don't say that, Henry. I said what I said. They rode. Elena stood in the doorway until the sound of the hooves was gone. Cecilia stood behind her rifle in hand. Inside, child. A moment. Elena. A moment, Aunt, please. Cecilia let her have the moment. When Elena finally turned back, her eyes were dry and her jaw was set, and she said, Give me paper. She wrote the letter to Victor in 11 minutes. She did not shout it on the page. She did not plead. She did not threaten. She wrote in the voice of a woman who had already won and was simply notifying the loser. Mr. Harrow, she wrote, I received your letter of the 20th instant. I have read it with care. I have also, as of this hour, delivered a certified copy of it under seal to an attorney of my choosing, whose name and address I am not at liberty to disclose at this time. I have also delivered a second certified copy to a second party, whose name I am likewise not disclosing. A third copy remains in my possession. Your letter contains in your own hand an offer to drop civil action against me in exchange for my return to your house. It also contains a threat against the life of Margaret Doyle, my former servant and current witness, in the event that I do not comply. You are, I am sure, familiar with the law of this state on the subject of extortion. You are, I am equally sure, familiar with the law of this state on the subject of conspiracy to commit false accusation of a capital crime. I leave you to reflect upon these matters at your leisure. Margaret Doyle is no longer in this county. She is no longer in this state. She will not be found by your men, because she is not where your men will look. If any harm comes to her by any hand at any time, anywhere on this earth, it will be understood as having come from you, and it will be answered accordingly. I will not return to your house on Sunday. I will not return to your house any day thereafter. The child I carry is mine. The name that child will bear is mine. If you pursue the guardianship action in the county court, I will answer it, and I will answer it with every page of every ledger I have in my possession, and I will answer it with the testimony of every woman whose name you ever asked me to sign under. I did not know Victor until this week what I had signed. I do now. You taught me every move in this game. Do not be surprised that I play it. Your wife, for as long as the law insists, Elena Harrow. Cecilia read it over her shoulder when she finished. Lord. Too much. Not nearly enough and exactly enough. I've never read a letter like it. I hope he reads it sitting down. I hope he reads it standing so he has farther to fall. A knock on the door. Soft. Not a man's knock. Both women froze. Who's there? A woman's voice low. Mrs. Winfield, please, I have nowhere else to come. Cecilia and Elena looked at each other. Name yourself, Cecilia called. A pause. My name is Vivian Ashford. Elena went still. Lady Vivian, she whispered. Elena, don't open that door. Aunt, don't you dare. Aunt, listen to her voice. I'm listening. I've heard weeping women turn into pistols in my time, child. Listen to it, Aunt. She's been riding. She's cold. She's scared. She's his mistress. She might be a great many things. Open the door. Elena, open it, Aunt, or I will. Cecilia opened the door, rifle raised. The woman on the porch was younger than Elena had imagined. She was not beautiful the way Elena had imagined. She was thin, and her face was drawn, and there was a bruise along the line of her jaw that someone had tried to powder over and failed. Miss Ashford. Mrs. Harrow? Vivian's voice shook. I didn't know where else I heard you were here. Everyone's heard. I rode 3 hours. I'm alone. I have no one with me. You have a bruise on your face. I do. Who put it there? Vivian's mouth trembled. You know who. Elena closed her eyes. Come in, Miss Ashford. Elena. Come in, Aunt. Please. Cecilia lowered the rifle slow, not happy. I'll stand right here. I'll stand right here the whole time. Stand where you like. Vivian came in. She did not sit until Elena pointed to a chair. Then she sat and her hands folded in her lap, and she could not look at Elena's face. Miss Ashford? Yes. Why have you come? Because he came home 2 nights ago, and he broke a mirror against the wall, and he told me I was going to raise your child. Elena's hand went without thinking to her belly. He told you what? He told me a plan he had made. He told me he had paid the doctor. He told me he had drawn the papers. He told me I would be installed in a house in Richmond, and the child would be sent to me within a month of its birth, and the child would be told I was its mother, and you would be... She stopped. Go on. I can't. Miss Ashford, go on. You were to be told the child had died, in the birth, and you were to be sent somewhere quiet to grieve, and he had a doctor, who would sign whatever he needed signed, and I said no. Mrs. Harrow, I said no. I want you to know that. I don't expect you to believe it. But I said no, and I said it loud, and that is when he did this. She touched her own jaw. And I packed a bag. Silence. Miss Ashford? Yes. How long have you known him? 4 years. How long has he hit you? 2. How long has he promised to marry you? 3. And when did you understand that he would never? Vivian Ashford looked up. Her eyes were red but dry. When he told me about the child. Say it properly. When he told me he would steal a baby from a living mother and hand it to me like a gift. When he said that. That is when I understood what he was. That is when I understood what I had become. I am not here asking your forgiveness, Mrs. Harrow. I am not owed it. I am here because I am the second witness to the plan, and because a woman told me once that if I ever had the chance to stand in a courtroom and undo even one of the things I've let him do, I should stand there even if it cost me my name. I have no name worth keeping. I would like to stand. Cecilia set the rifle down. Elena did not speak for a long time. Then she said, "You said a woman told you that. What woman?" "Her name was Hannah Pruitt." Elena's breath left her. "Hannah Pruitt. She wrote to me. Last autumn. From Philadelphia. She had heard of me. She said she had lived in his house 4 years before I did. She said she had believed him. She said she had signed papers she should not have signed. She said if she could go back and do one thing, it would be to warn the next woman. She said I was the next woman. She said she was sorry she had not written sooner. She said she would testify if ever she was asked. You have her letter. I have it in my pocket. Give it to me." Vivian Ashford handed it over. Elena read it once. She handed it to Cecilia. Cecilia read it. "Oh, child." "Aunt." "Oh, child. This is the whole house falling down on him." "Yes." "This is the whole house." "Yes." "Miss Ashford." "Yes, Mrs. Winfield. You will sleep here tonight. You will sleep in the room at the back. My niece will consider what she is going to do with you in the morning. I will not pretend to like you. I will not pretend to trust you. But you have done a thing tonight that cost you, and I have lived long enough to know the difference between a woman who lies and a woman who has stopped. Thank you, ma'am. Don't thank me. Thank the woman in Philadelphia." Vivian nodded. Her eyes filled. "I will." She was led to the back room. Cecilia came back and sat down heavy at the table. "Elena." "I know. We have 3 witnesses now. You, Margaret, this woman. 4 if we can get Hannah Pruitt south. 4. And Dr. Fleming makes 5 if we can turn him. You think we can turn him? I think when Dr. Fleming learns there is a letter from Victor threatening to hang a woman for theft with Dr. Fleming as the named witness, Dr. Fleming will ride so fast to the side of the angels he will wear out 2 horses. Aunt. Yes. I am not afraid anymore. I can tell. Is that strange? No, child, that's how it goes. You carry the fear until you can't, and then one night it sets itself down, and you find out it was the fear that was heavy, not the leaven. Elena put her hand flat on the table. Aunt, we need to sleep. Tomorrow is going to be a long day. Tomorrow will be the longest day you have ever lived, child. You ought to sleep. Elena slept. She slept 3 hours. At 4 in the morning, Cecilia shook her shoulder. Elena, wake up. What? Wake up, child. Come to the window. Elena came to the window. The sky to the south was orange. Aunt? Yes. That's not the sun. No. That's miles off. That's 20 miles off. Aunt, that's Harrow Estate, child, or I'm a blind fool. Elena put her hand against the window frame. Who? I don't know. Aunt, who? I don't know, Elena. Was it? It was not Margaret. Margaret is 100 miles east by now. It was not Henry. It was not this house. I do not know whose hand lit it. I only know it is lit. Victor. What? It was Victor. Elena. He burned it himself, Aunt. Or he had it burned. Because the ledgers are gone. Because the papers are gone. Because I took them, and he knows I took them. And now the house can burn, and he can say it was the fire that took the records, not me. He can say anything was in those books, and they will never be found to say otherwise. He is burning his own ground, so I cannot salt it. Child. He is burning his own house. Child, that is a possibility. That is not a fact. It's a fact, Aunt. I know that man. I know that man in my bones. Cecilia did not argue. What do? We write it down. Right now. Every word we have said in this room in the last 2 minutes. We write it down, we date it, we sign it, we wake Edgar Wills, and we swear it before him before the sun comes up. So that when Victor rides into this village tomorrow, claiming Elena set fire to the Harrow estate, there is a sworn statement in the hands of a justice of the peace, dated and witnessed from two women 20 miles away, saying we saw the fire from a window and we knew whose hand it was before the ashes settled. Elena, that is not proof. It is not proof. It is a record. It is the beginning of a record. And a record is what we are building at. A record is what we have been building since the morning I walked out of that breakfast room. I do not need to prove every fact today. I need to put it on paper today, so that when the lies come tomorrow, there is a thing in the world written down that existed before the lies. Cecilia looked at her. You are, she said, the most dangerous thing I have ever raised. You didn't raise me, Aunt. I did in the last 36 hours. The knock came at 7. It was not tentative. It was the knock of a man who believed he had the law behind him. Mrs. Winfield, this is Sheriff Boyd. Open the door. Cecilia and Elena looked at each other. Vivian was already on her feet in the hallway, pale. Open it, Aunt. You sit. I will stand. Elena, sit. I will stand, Aunt. I have sat for 7 years. I will stand for this. Cecilia opened the door. Sheriff Boyd was a heavy man with tired eyes. There were 3 men behind him. One of them was Victor. Elena had known he would be there before she saw him. Mrs. Harrow. Sheriff Boyd. Ma'am, I have a warrant for your arrest. On what charge? Arson, ma'am. The Harrow estate burned last night. Mr. Harrow has sworn out a complaint that you set it before you fled the county. He has 2 men who say they saw you ride up the night before last, carrying a lantern. That's a lie. Ma'am, I ain't saying whether it is or it isn't. I'm saying I have a warrant. Victor stepped forward from behind the sheriff. His face was calm. That was the thing Elena noticed first. He was calm. He was not grieving. He was not raging. A man whose house had burned down 10 hours before should not be standing at a doorway with a calm face. Elena? Don't. Elena, come home. This can all be stopped. A word from me to the sheriff and Sheriff Boyd. Ma'am, before you serve that warrant, I am going to hand you a piece of paper. My aunt is going to step very slowly to the sideboard, and she is going to bring me a folded document. You will not draw on her. She is 71 years old, and she is bringing you paper. Is that agreed? Sheriff Boyd looked at her. That is agreed, ma'am. Aunt. Cecilia brought the paper. It was the statement. Signed, dated, sworn at 5:30 that morning by Edgar Wills, Justice of the Peace, who had been roused from his bed by an old friend and had listened to 2 women describe what they saw from a window at 4 in the morning, and had written it down and had watched them sign it, and had sealed it with his own hand. Elena handed it to the sheriff. Read that. He read it. His face did not change. His eyes did. Ma'am? Yes, Sheriff. This here is a sworn statement dated before sunup from you and your aunt, saying you watched the fire from this window from 20 miles off and saying you believe it was set by Mr. Harrow's own hand. Yes. Sworn before Edgar Wills. Yes. That complicates the warrant, ma'am. I reckoned it would. Victor's calm broke. Just a crack. Sheriff, that document is nothing. A woman's statement, Mr. Harrow. Sheriff, I have 2 witnesses. Mr. Harrow, with respect, so does she, and hers are sworn, and hers are dated before the fire was even reported in my office. You'll pardon me if I take a minute before I put this woman in irons. Sheriff. Mr. Harrow, step back from this porch. Victor stepped back. Elena did not move. Sheriff Boyd. Yes, ma'am. I will come with you voluntarily to your office. I will not resist. I will answer any question you ask. I will bring with me in this satchel certified copies of documents I believe are relevant to this matter, including a letter received from my husband Thursday evening in his own hand, offering to drop a civil suit against me in exchange for my return, and threatening the life of another woman if I did not comply. That letter is in your jurisdiction. I would like it read into the record of whatever proceeding you open this morning. I would like it read before my husband leaves this village. The sheriff's jaw worked. Ma'am, Are you telling me you have a letter from this man offering to have a woman hanged? I am telling you, I have a letter from this man offering to have a woman hanged. Victor's face went gray. Sheriff? Mr. Harrow, you will ride with me to my office. You will ride behind my deputy. You will not speak to this woman again today. Are we understood? I am the injured party here. Sir, you are about to be a party, and we will see to what kind before noon. Move. Victor moved. Elena watched him mount his horse. She watched him settle. She watched him look back at her from the road one time, and she did not drop her eyes. I told you I would play the game, Victor. She said, too quiet for him to hear. But she believed for the first time in her life that he had heard her anyway. They rode to the sheriff's office in a wagon Cecilia drove herself. Elena sat on the bench with her hand flat on her belly, the satchel of papers across her lap. Vivian Ashford rode behind on a borrowed mare, her knuckles white on the reins. Nobody spoke. There was nothing to say that hadn't already been said, and plenty that hadn't been said yet, and the saying of it could wait until there were witnesses. Sheriff Boyd's office was a low building on the main street of the village, one room with a stove and a table, and 2 cells in the back that were almost never used. Victor was already inside when they arrived, seated in a chair on one side of the table, his hands folded, his face back to that dangerous calm. Mrs. Harrow. Boyd stood when Elena entered. Sheriff. Ma'am, have a seat. You, Mrs. Winfield, you can stand if you want. I'm sorry, miss, what was your name again? Ashford? Vivian Ashford. Victor's head turned slow, the first real movement he had made. Vivian. Mr. Harrow. Vivian, what are you doing here? I am here as a witness, Mr. Harrow. A witness to what? To a plan you made, sir, concerning Mrs. Harrow and the child she carries. I believe the sheriff will wish to hear it. Victor's calm cracked for a second time. He reached up and pressed his thumb hard against his own temple, the way a man does when he is trying to keep a wall from coming down. Elena watched him do it and did not feel sorry. She noted it the way a woman notes the time on a clock. Sheriff Boyd, Victor said, this woman is my mistress. She is a woman of bad character. Anything she says against me is the testimony of a jealous woman who has been dismissed, Mr. Harrow. And you are not going to? Mr. Harrow, I will decide what I am not going to. Miss Ashford, sit. Mrs. Harrow, you had a letter. Elena reached into the satchel and laid the letter on the table. Sheriff Boyd picked it up. He read it slowly, the way a man reads who knows that every word he is about to read will come back under oath. When he was done, he set it down and looked at Victor. Mr. Harrow. Yes, Sheriff. Is this your hand? Sheriff, that letter is a forgery. Mr. Harrow, is this your hand? I said it was a forgery. Boyd reached into his desk drawer and took out a folder. From the folder, he took 2 pieces of paper. One was a land deed filed 6 months earlier. The other was a tax attestation filed 2 months after that. Both were signed by Victor Harrow. He laid them on the table beside the letter. Mr. Harrow, would you say these 3 documents were written by the same hand? Sheriff, a man's handwriting can be imitated. Mr. Harrow, I have been a sheriff 22 years. I have seen more forgeries than you have seen Sundays. I am looking at 3 documents in the same hand. The curl of the H is the same. The loop of the G is the same. The slant is the same. The pressure on the downstrokes is the same. I could put any 2 of these before any magistrate in this state, and that magistrate would tell me they were written by the same man. Do you want to try again? Silence. Mr. Harrow, I did not write that letter. Mr. Harrow, I did not write that letter. All right. I'll make a note of your denial. Now, Mrs. Harrow. Yes, Sheriff? What else have you got? Miss Ashford has a statement. Miss Ashford. Vivian stood. She did not sit again. Her voice shook at first and then stopped shaking. 3 nights ago, she said, Mr. Harrow came to me at the cottage on the west edge of the Harrow property. He was drinking. He had been drinking since noon. He told me he had a plan. He told me he had been working on it since April. He told me that Mrs. Harrow was to be sent to a country house after the birth of her child, and that she was to be told the child had died. He told me he had paid a doctor. He told me he had drawn papers. He told me I would raise the child. He told me we would marry within the year. I said no. I said it more than once. He struck me in the face. I left the cottage the next morning before he woke. I took a horse from his own stable, and I rode to Mrs. Winfield's house because I could not think of anywhere else to go, and because a woman in Philadelphia had written to me last autumn and had asked me if the day ever came to do exactly this. Boyd wrote it down. His pen did not pause once. Miss Ashford, the woman in Philadelphia. What was her name? Hannah Pruitt. Victor closed his eyes. It was small. It was almost nothing. But Elena saw it, and the sheriff saw it, and Cecilia saw it, and a fourth person standing in the doorway saw it. Sheriff. They all turned. A man in a dusty coat stood in the doorway. He was perhaps 60, with gray at his temples and a traveling case in his hand. Behind him, breathing hard as if she had run the last block, was a woman Elena had never met but recognized instantly from the shape of the name alone. Sheriff Boyd, the man said. My name is Thomas Ashby. I am an attorney out of Savannah. I ride in on behalf of Mrs. Elena Harrow and on behalf of the estate of her late father, Colonel Benjamin Wren. With me is Miss Hannah Pruitt, lately of Philadelphia. We have a deposition. We have a number of depositions. I apologize for the interruption. I understand my arrival is a day early. My client's maid reached me at 4 a.m. and I have not slept. May I sit down? Elena stared at him. Mr. Ashby. Mrs. Harrow. Margaret. Miss Doyle is safe, ma'am. She is in the care of my wife. She ate a full supper, and she is sleeping as we speak. She handed me your papers at 2 a.m. I read them on the way to the stable. Elena's hand went to her mouth. And Miss Pruitt? Miss Pruitt has been waiting for a letter for 4 years, ma'am. When mine came, she rode to meet me at the county line. She has not been idle those 4 years. She has been collecting. Hannah Pruitt stepped forward. She was younger than Elena had pictured. She could not have been more than 26. Her eyes were the eyes of a woman who had decided a long time ago that she was going to live through something. Mrs. Harrow. Miss Pruitt. I am sorry we meet this way. I am sorry we did not meet sooner. That was his doing, not yours. I know. Sheriff. Hannah Pruitt turned. I would like to sit if I may. I have ridden 2 days without stopping. Sit, miss, please. She sat. She folded her hands. She looked at Victor Harrow for the first time in 4 years, and she did not look away. Mr. Harrow. Miss Pruitt. You do not look surprised to see me. I am not. Good. Neither am I. Sheriff Boyd cleared his throat. Miss Pruitt, you have a statement. I do. Proceed. 4 years ago, Hannah Pruitt said, I was a governess in the household of Mr. Victor Harrow. I became pregnant. The child was his. When I was 6 months along, I was told by Dr. Fleming that the child had died inside me. I was told I must be delivered at a country house for the protection of my reputation. I was delivered at that country house. I heard an infant cry. I was told the cry was a farm cat. I was told my child was stillborn. I was sent north. I was given a sum of money. I was told never to return. Silence. Miss Pruitt. Yes, Sheriff. Are you telling me you believe your child is alive? I am telling you, Sheriff, that I know my child is alive. Victor did not move. How do you know, Miss Pruitt? Because Miss Ashford has seen him. Every head in the room turned. Vivian Ashford's face went white. Vivian! Hannah! Tell him. Vivian closed her eyes. Her hand came up and pressed against her mouth. Miss Ashford. Yes, Sheriff. Do you know a child of Mr. Harrow's? I do. Where is this child? He is in a house outside Charleston. He is 3 years old. He is called Thomas. He is cared for by a woman named Mrs. Price. I have visited him twice at Mr. Harrow's request because Mr. Harrow wished me to grow accustomed to children before the other plan was carried out. I did not know, Sheriff. I did not know whose child he was. Mr. Harrow told me he was the son of a cousin who had died. I had no reason to doubt it. I did not know until Miss Pruitt's letter came to me last autumn whose son I had been holding. Hannah Pruitt made a sound. It was not a sob. It was something older than a sob. Miss Pruitt? Sheriff? Miss Pruitt, are you fit to continue? I am fit to continue, Sheriff. I have waited 4 years to continue. I am fit until the sun goes down, and then I am fit through the night. All right, miss? She looked at Victor. Mr. Harrow? He did not answer. Mr. Harrow, you took my son. He did not answer. Mr. Harrow, answer her. Sheriff, answer her. I did not. You did? Miss Pruitt, you are mistaken in your grief. Do not speak to me about grief, Victor Harrow. Do not. I have been grieving a living child for 4 years. I have been grieving a child I could have held. I have been grieving at a grave that does not exist. I have been grieving a lie. And today, I am done grieving. And I am going to take my son home, and you are going to sit in a cell for the rest of your life. Thomas Ashby stood. Sheriff Boyd? Mr. Ashby, I have in my case a sworn deposition from a Mrs. Elizabeth Price residing outside Charleston, taken last evening by a colleague of mine who rides circuit in that county. Mrs. Price has been employed by Mr. Harrow for 3 years as a nursemaid. Mrs. Price has as of yesterday sworn under oath and under the protection of my firm that the child in her care is the biological son of Miss Hannah Pruitt, that Mrs. Price was told this directly by Mr. Harrow in the child's 2nd year, and that Mrs. Price has been paid monthly from an account held in the name of Colonel Benjamin Wren deceased. Elena's head snapped up. From what account? From the account of your late father, ma'am, the estate he left you, the estate of which Mr. Harrow has been by marriage the administrator, the estate from which by my preliminary review of the ledgers Miss Doyle delivered to me at 2 this morning, Mr. Harrow has been withdrawing sums since 6 months after your wedding. Cecilia sat down slow. He was using Ben's money. Yes, ma'am. He was using Ben's money to raise another woman's child. Yes, ma'am. He was using my dead brother's money. Yes, ma'am. And not only for the child, also for the cottage. Also for a second property in Norfolk. Also for 3 separate sums paid in the last year to Dr. Fleming, Mr. Jesse Caldwell, and Mr. Pettigrew of the general store. I have not yet cross-referenced all entries. I have been in the saddle 4 hours. Give me a day, and I will give you a map. Mr. Ashby. Yes, Mrs. Harrow? You rode 4 hours to get here. I did. You read ledgers on horseback. I did. Why? Thomas Ashby looked at Cecilia Winfield. Because Mrs. Harrow, your aunt, is the only woman I have ever proposed to. She turned me down 43 years ago. I have owed her a favor since. This is the favor. I am as of this morning in the employ of your estate free of charge for as long as I am needed, and I am a very stubborn man, and I am very good at what I do. Cecilia did not look at him. Thomas Ashby. Cecilia. Shut up and do your job. Yes, ma'am. Sheriff Boyd put his pen down. Mr. Harrow? Victor did not speak. Mr. Harrow, stand up. Sheriff, stand up. Victor stood. Mr. Harrow, I am placing you under arrest on the following charges: extortion, conspiracy to commit false accusation of a capital crime, embezzlement from the estate of a decedent, kidnapping of a minor child, namely the child of Miss Hannah Pruitt, fraudulent representation of the circumstances of a live birth, assault upon the person of Miss Vivian Ashford, and as of this morning, pending the statement of a witness, I will be bringing in before noon arson in the 1st degree upon your own property for the purpose of destroying evidence. You will be held without bail. You will not be granted communication with any party outside this office until a circuit judge reviews your case, which will be a matter of days, not hours. Do you understand the charges? Victor looked at Elena. Elena. No. Elena, please. No. Elena, the child. No. Her voice rose for the first time. You do not say the word child in this room. You do not. You stole a child. You plan to steal another. You have no child. You will never have a child. You are not a father. You are not a husband. You are a man who is about to walk through that door in irons, and the next room you stand in will be a room I choose. And the next time you say my name in public will be the day a judge lets you say it, and that day is going to be a long time coming." Victor's face broke. Not into rage, into something smaller, something beggarly. "Elena, you were the one I loved. Don't. You were. You were the only one I said don't. Elena." "Mr. Harrow." Sheriff Boyd's hand closed on his arm. "Walk." Victor walked. The cell in the back of the office was small and clean. The door closed on him with a sound that was much quieter than Elena had expected. She had thought that a sound like that would be loud. It was not. It was a soft sound, a small clean click, and it ended 7 years. Elena sat down. She had not sat since the sheriff had first said her name that morning. Her legs did not want to hold her anymore. Cecilia crossed the room and put a hand on her shoulder, and for the first time Elena understood that her aunt's hand was shaking too, that her aunt had been shaking for hours, that her aunt had simply been the kind of woman who did not let shaking stop her. "Aunt." "I'm here, child." "The boy." "I know." "The boy in Charleston." "I know." "Aunt, there is a little boy in Charleston who doesn't know his mother's name." "I know, Elena. We have to go." "We will. Not tomorrow." "Not tomorrow. Today. As soon as Ashby says we can, child. He is the lawyer. We go when he says we go, but we will go." Hannah Pruitt had not moved. She sat very still in her chair, her hands folded, her face wet, her back straight. Elena looked at her across the room. She stood up on legs that did not want to stand, and she walked to her and she knelt in front of her chair, which was not an easy thing to do at 7 months along. "Miss Pruitt." "Mrs. Harrow." "Hannah." "Elena." "I did not know." "I know you did not." "I signed a paper." "I know you did. I have a copy of it. You signed a reference. You thought you were signing a reference. I knew it when I read it. You would not have signed a lie if you had known it was a lie. I never held it against you, Elena. Not once. Not in 4 years." "Hannah." "Yes." "We are going to Charleston tomorrow." "Yes." "We are going to bring your son home." "Yes. And when he is home, he will have a mother, and he will have an aunt, and he will have a cousin who is about to be born, and he will never in his life want for a woman who will stand between him and a closed door. Do you hear me? He will not." Hannah Pruitt put her hands on Elena's face. She did not wipe the tears away. She let them be. "Elena Harrow." "Yes." "We are going to raise our children together." "Yes." "On the same road." "On the same road." "Say it." "On the same road, Hannah. On the same road." Outside the village was gathering. Elena could hear them through the window. Word moved fast in a village, and word of this kind moved faster than most. There were voices in the street. There were boots on the boardwalk. There was Hattie Breen's voice somewhere out there, bright and carrying, saying, "I sat at her table. I sat at her table, and she had kind eyes." Sheriff Boyd came back from the cell. He looked tired. He looked older than he had an hour ago. "Mrs. Harrow." "Yes, Sheriff." "There is a crowd outside." "I heard. Some of them are for you. Some of them are against. Most of them don't know yet what they are. I reckon if you walked out on that boardwalk and said a few words, they would know by the time you finished." Elena looked at him. "Sheriff Boyd?" "Ma'am, you do not strike me as a man who gives much thought to what a woman says from a boardwalk." "No, ma'am, I do not. But I've been a sheriff 22 years, and I have just listened to the ugliest hour of testimony I have heard in office. And I would like the people of this village to hear a true thing today, because they are about to hear a great many false ones by sundown. I would like you to be the one to say it, if you are able." Elena stood. She put her hand against the small of her back. She put her other hand on her belly. She looked at her aunt, and her aunt nodded once. She looked at Vivian Ashford, who was still pale, who had given up every comfort she had ever known in the last 48 hours, and who met her eyes without flinching. She looked at Hannah Pruitt, and Hannah Pruitt stood up beside her. "Sheriff Boyd?" "Ma'am?" "Open the door." He opened the door. Elena stepped out onto the boardwalk, and the village went quiet. Not all at once. The quiet rolled through the crowd the way a wind rolls through wheat, starting at the front and moving back. One voice dropping, and then the next, until there were maybe 80 people standing in the street, and not one of them was talking. Hattie Breen was at the front. She had climbed up onto a crate so she could see. Her face was so bright it hurt to look at. Elena held up one hand. "My name is Elena Harrow." A murmur. "Some of you know me. Most of you do not. You know my husband's name. You do not know mine. That is going to change today." The crowd stood still. "I am not here to make a speech. I am not going to cry, and I am not going to beg, and I am not going to ask any of you to take my side. I am going to tell you what happened, and then I am going to get into a wagon with my aunt and with 2 other women, and we are going to ride to Charleston, and we are going to bring home a 3-year-old boy, and we are not going to stop until we have him. That is the whole of my plan. You can decide for yourselves what you want to do with what I tell you." Someone in the back called out, "Ma'am, is it true he burned his own house?" "Yes, he burned his own house. He burned it to destroy papers he did not know I had already taken." "Ma'am, is it true about the baby?" Hannah Pruitt stepped forward before Elena could answer. "My name is Hannah Pruitt. I was a governess in Victor Harrow's house. 4 years ago he told me my son was dead. He was not dead. He is 3 years old. He lives outside Charleston, and he is called Thomas, and I am going to get him this week. That is the baby you are asking about. And if any one of you has ever wondered why a young woman left this county without a word in the spring of 14, that is your answer. You wondered because a man told you to wonder. He doesn't get to tell you anything anymore." A woman in the crowd began to cry. An old man took off his hat. A boy of maybe 10 climbed up on his father's shoulders to see better. "Ma'am." Another voice. "Ma'am, what do you want us to do?" Elena looked out at them. "I want you to remember today. That is all. I want you to remember that 3 women stood on this boardwalk in the summer of 1818, and they told you the truth, and the sheriff of this county took a rich man's hands and put them behind his back, and the law worked. I want you to remember it, because the next time a woman in this village comes to one of you with a bruise she is trying to powder over, I want you to remember what today looked like, and I want you to open your door to her. That is what I want, nothing else. I don't need your pity, and I don't need your coins, and I don't need your prayers. I need your door. Open it when the time comes. That's the whole of it." She turned to step down. A man at the back of the crowd spoke up. He was old, bent over a cane with a voice like gravel. "Mrs. Harrow." "Yes, sir?" "I knew your daddy." Elena paused. "Did you, sir?" "Colonel Wren. Served under him at Yorktown. Second time I was shot, he carried me off a field in the rain. I was 17. I lived because he was stubborn." "He was stubborn, sir." "Yes. Ma'am, I just want to say, he'd be right proud. That's all. That's all I come to say. I walked 2 miles on this leg to say it. Figured somebody ought to." Elena's throat closed. "Sir, thank you. I thank you." "Ma'am." He tipped his hat and turned away. The crowd began to move in the slow way of crowds that have been given more than they came for. Some people walked off shaking their heads. Some walked off wiping their eyes. Some walked up and tried to say something to her and could not find the words and walked off again. A woman she had never seen before pressed a loaf of bread into her hands without a word. Another woman pressed a small bag of coin and said, "For the road, ma'am, for the road," and walked away before Elena could refuse. Cecilia stood beside her on the boardwalk. She was not looking at the crowd. She was looking at her niece. "Elena." "Aunt." "Your mother." "I know." "Your mother." "I know, Aunt." "She'd have stood on this boardwalk with you." "I know she would." "She didn't get the chance." "No." "You stood for her too." Elena could not answer. They left for Charleston before noon. Thomas Ashby went ahead with 2 men. Elena and Hannah and Cecilia followed in a wagon driven by Henry, who had ridden all night and slept 3 hours, and refused to let anyone else hold the reins. Vivian Ashford stayed behind in the village at the sheriff's request to sign further statements. She told Elena at the wagon step, "I am going to testify. I am going to testify all the way to the end of it. You do not need to worry about me." "I wasn't worried, Vivian. You should have been. You were kind not to be." "We are not friends yet." "No, we are not. But we might be. We might be, Mrs. Harrow." Elena. The ride to Charleston took 2 days. Elena slept most of the first day, her head on her aunt's shoulder, one hand on her belly, the other wrapped in Hannah Pruitt's hand. Hannah did not sleep. Hannah sat upright the whole way, her eyes on the road, her jaw set, and every few hours she would say very quietly, "Thomas," and then she would say nothing else for another hour. They reached the house outside Charleston at dusk on the second day. Mrs. Price was waiting on the porch. She was a broad woman of 50 with gray hair pinned tight, and she had been crying. Thomas Ashby told them quietly, since she had given her deposition 2 nights before. She had been crying because she had known. She had known for a year. She had known, and she had said nothing, because a woman who depended on a monthly envelope of coin did not say things that stopped the envelope coming. "Miss Pruitt." Mrs. Price stood when Hannah climbed down from the wagon. "Mrs. Price?" "Miss, I don't ask your forgiveness. I don't give it." "No, miss, I know." "Where is he?" "He's asleep, miss. He's a good boy. He's a kind boy. He likes horses. He likes the song about the blackbird. I sing it to him at night. I didn't mean to sing to him like he was mine. It happened." Hannah Pruitt looked at her. "Mrs. Price." "Yes, miss." "Will you bring him to me?" "Yes, miss." "Will you carry him gentle?" "Yes, miss. I will carry him like he is made of paper." "Then go." Mrs. Price went inside. Hannah Pruitt stood in the yard. Her hands hung at her sides. She did not move. She did not speak. Elena stood beside her, and Cecilia stood beside Elena, and Henry stood beside Cecilia with his hat in his hands. And nobody made a sound. For the longest 2 minutes Elena had ever known. Then the door opened. Mrs. Price came out carrying a small boy in a nightshirt. He was sleepy. His hair was dark and fine, and his cheek was creased from the pillow. He was maybe 3.5. His eyes, when he opened them, were the exact shape of Hannah Pruitt's eyes. "Thomas, honey." "Thomas, wake up a little bit, sweetheart. There's a lady come to see you." He blinked. He looked at Hannah. He did not know her. He did not know her yet. He would have to learn her. But something in his face did a thing that children's faces do when they see a shape they have been dreaming of, without knowing they were dreaming of it. "Are you the lady?" Hannah could not speak. Elena spoke for her. Elena knelt down slow, because she could not kneel fast anymore. "Thomas?" "Yes, ma'am." "This is the lady. The lady from the song." "What song, sweetheart?" "Mrs. Price sings a song about a lady who's coming." Mrs. Price's face broke. "I sang it every night, miss. I sang it every night. I thought if I sang it enough, maybe it'd be true someday." Hannah Pruitt dropped to her knees in the yard. "Thomas?" "Yes, ma'am." "Thomas, my name is Hannah." "Hannah?" "Yes." "Are you the lady in the song?" "Yes, baby. I am the lady in the song." He reached out. He put his small hand flat against her cheek. "You're warm." "Yes, baby." "Mrs. Price, she's warm." "Yes, Thomas. She's your mama." He thought about that. He thought about it the way a 3-year-old thinks, which is seriously and without hurry. "Mama." "Yes." "Mama, did you come a long way?" "Hannah." Pruitt pulled her son against her chest and bent over him and made a sound that was not a word, and Elena turned her face away, because some moments are not for witnesses. Cecilia took Elena's hand. "Child. Aunt. We did it. We did. You did. We did. They rode home slow. The trial came that autumn. It lasted 4 days. Victor's lawyers tried every door. They tried forgery. They tried insanity. They tried the argument that a wife could not testify against a husband, an argument Thomas Ashby dismantled in 40 minutes of citations. They tried to impeach Hannah Pruitt as a woman of loose character, and were met by the physical presence of a 3-year-old boy in the gallery who looked to every juror who turned around exactly like the defendant. They tried to impeach Vivian Ashford as a jealous mistress, and were met by the bruise she still carried along her jaw, which she refused to powder for the courtroom. They tried to impeach Margaret Doyle as a disgruntled servant, and were met by Margaret Doyle herself, small and steady on the stand, who said, "Sir, I was paid $2 a month in that house, and I came here of my own will, and if you think I would ride 200 miles on a borrowed horse for a grudge, you have not met many servants." The gallery laughed. The judge let them. Dr. Fleming did not come to the stand. Dr. Fleming had fled the state 2 weeks before the trial. Thomas Ashby noted his absence for the record and entered in his place a sworn affidavit Fleming had signed in a Baltimore hotel room in the presence of 2 notaries in exchange for a promise that he would not be pursued across the state line. The affidavit described everything: the fever, the first payment, the false pronouncement over Hannah Pruitt's infant, the cottage, the plan for Elena. The money, always the money, always Colonel Wren's money flowing through Victor's hands into the hands of men who knew how to be quiet. Victor took the stand once. He took the stand against his lawyer's advice because Victor was Victor, and he believed, still at the end of it, that he could talk his way through any room he stood in. He could not. He spoke for 11 minutes. He called Elena hysterical, and the gallery murmured. He called Hannah opportunistic, and a woman in the back row stood up and had to be escorted out for what she said. He called Vivian vengeful, and Vivian in the front row tilted her head at him with an expression so cold that even Victor in all his arrogance stopped mid-sentence. Then he looked at Elena. "Elena." Mr. Harrow addressed the court. "Elena, I want you to know." Mr. Harrow, "I want you to know I never stopped loving." Elena stood. She had not planned to stand. She had been told not to. She stood anyway. "Your Honor." Mrs. Harrow, "Your Honor, I am going to ask one thing, and then I am going to sit down. I am going to ask that this man not be permitted to say that word in this room. He does not know it. He has never known it. He used it as a leash for 7 years. He does not get to lay it down on me one more time in a court of law in front of my child's witnesses and ask it to mean anything. I am asking the court to forbid him the word." Mrs. Harrow, sit down. "Your Honor, I am asking." Mrs. Harrow, "I am a judge. I am not going to forbid any man any word. But I will tell you this on the record. That word as he used it a moment ago has been heard by this court, and it has been weighed by this court, and it has been found by this court to carry no weight whatsoever. Does that answer you?" "Your Honor, yes, that answers me." "Then sit." She sat. The verdict came on a Thursday. Guilty on all counts: kidnapping, fraud, embezzlement, extortion, assault, arson, conspiracy to commit false accusation of a capital crime. The sentence was handed down the same afternoon. 25 years, in the state penitentiary, without possibility of early release. Victor Harrow did not look at Elena when they led him out. He looked at the floor. He looked at the floor all the way to the door, and he was still looking at the floor when the door closed behind him. And Elena thought, that is the last time I will ever have to be in a room with him. And the thought was so light, she thought she might float out of the chair. She did not float. She walked. She walked out of the courthouse on her aunt's arm 7.5 months along, and she stood on the steps in the October sun, and she took one long breath that she had been saving up, she thought, since her wedding day. "Aunt." "Elena." "It's over. Child, it's begun." The baby came in December, a girl, 8 pounds and fighting. She was born in Cecilia's house in the narrow bed at the top of the stairs with Margaret Doyle holding one of Elena's hands and Hannah Pruitt holding the other, and Cecilia at the foot of the bed, snapping orders at the midwife like a general. Vivian Ashford was in the kitchen boiling water. Hattie Breen was on the porch, keeping watch for no reason anyone could name, because everyone in the village by then knew there was nothing left to watch for. But Hattie Breen had decided she would keep watch anyway, because that was what Hattie Breen did now. Elena named her Anne. Anne Wren. Not Anne Harrow. Anne Wren after Elena's mother, whose name had been waiting 30 years to be said aloud, in a room with a new baby in it. Anne, Elena whispered when they put the child on her chest. Anne, baby. Hello? Anne Wren cried, loud, strong, furious, exactly as she ought to. Aunt Cecilia. Child. She's loud. Of course she's loud. Look at her mother. Elena laughed. It was the third time in her life she had laughed without thinking about it first. And the second one had been on the road 2 days out of Harrow Estate, and the first one she could no longer remember. Hannah Pruitt sat down on the edge of the bed. Elena. Hannah. She's beautiful. Yes. Thomas is downstairs. He wants to meet her. He has been practicing. He has been saying, I am a big brother. I am a big brother for 4 hours. Bring him up. Are you sure? Bring him up, Hannah. He's her family. Hannah brought Thomas up. Thomas Pruitt, 3.5 years old, in a little nightshirt Mrs. Price had sewn him, who had been told 20 times in the last month that the baby would be his cousin, but who had decided in the private kingdom of his own mind that the baby would be his sister, because he had always wanted a sister, and because his mother had told him he could want any true thing he wanted for the rest of his life. He climbed up on the bed. He looked at Anne. His face was very serious. Mama. Yes, Thomas. She's little. Yes, honey. Mama, I'm going to take care of her. Yes, honey. Mama, I'm going to take care of her forever. Yes, honey, that's right. That's what big brothers do. Elena watched them. She thought, this is the moment. This is the moment I will remember when I am old. Not the boardwalk, not the courtroom, not the verdict. These 4 faces around this bed. My aunt at the foot, Margaret at my shoulder, Hannah across from me, a little boy holding my baby's hand. This is what I walked out of that breakfast room for. I did not know it when I walked. I know it now. Spring came. The village changed in the small ways villages change. Mrs. Pettigrew left her husband and went to live with her sister in Columbia, and nobody said a word about it. And when Mr. Pettigrew came into the general store complaining, the women of the village turned their backs on him, every one of them, and kept them turned until he stopped complaining and sold the store to a younger man and moved to Richmond. Hattie Breen started a small school for girls in Cecilia's front parlor, 3 afternoons a week, and taught them to read and to write and to ask a question and wait for the answer. Vivian Ashford became a nurse. She apprenticed under the village doctor, the one who had replaced Fleming, and she was good at it because a woman who has been hit learns eventually how to be gentle with other bodies. Margaret Doyle never worked another day as a maid. She learned to cipher, and she kept the books for Cecilia's property, and she bought herself a small plot of land at the edge of town and raised chickens, and when she sold an egg, she did it at the price. She named, not the price, some man named for her. Elena raised Anne, and with Hannah, she raised Thomas. The 2 of them bought a property together at the edge of the village, a long white house with land enough for horses, and they lived there, and the children grew up there, and the children called Cecilia grandmother, and they called Margaret aunt, and they called Vivian aunt, and they called Hattie aunt, and none of them ever knew, until they were much older, that not all families were made this way, that most children grew up in houses with fewer women in them, and that it was possible to be a child and have only one aunt or none, or only an aunt on paper. Anne Wren grew up to be a lawyer. She was the second woman admitted to the bar in the state of South Carolina. She tried her first case at 26, and she won it, and she won the one after that, and the one after that, and she was known in the courtrooms of the Low Country as a woman who did not raise her voice and did not need to. Thomas Pruitt grew up to be a doctor, a real one, the kind who came when you called and did not charge a woman who could not pay and wrote no affidavits he would not sign in front of his own mother. Elena Harrow lived to be 87 years old, She died in the narrow bed at the top of the stairs in the house her aunt had left her, with her daughter's hand in her right hand and her son's hand in her left. And Hannah Pruitt, 90 years old, bent and white-haired, sat in the chair by the window and did not weep, because Hannah Pruitt had decided 40 years before that she would not weep for a woman who had given her son back, that she would laugh instead. And she laughed at the last joke Elena made. A small one, a dry one, a joke only the two of them understood. And Elena heard her laugh, and Elena closed her eyes, and Elena went. They buried her beside Cecilia. On the stone by her own instruction, written long before, were the words she had whispered to a child in a narrow bed in the summer of 1818, the night she first understood she was going to live. I chose myself, and she did. And because she did, a dozen other women did. And because they did, 100 daughters did. And because of those daughters, the world in that small corner of it became a place where a woman could walk out of a breakfast room on a summer morning and find at the end of the road, not ruin, not silence, not a locked door, but a house full of women and a child of her own, and a name she had chosen, and a life that was hers, every inch of it, every breath of it, every bright, unbroken morning of it, from that day forward until the end of her days. She chose herself, and she was free.